The Stoic Virtue Lie. So, you think you understand Stoicism? What if that version you've heard, the one promising a quick fix for calm and resilience, is just a shadow of the real thing? What if all that Stoic advice flooding your social feed is missing the one essential idea the ancient founders believed was the bedrock of their entire philosophy? Forget the pop psychology, the endless life hacks, and that emotionless robot image. The ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, weren't handing out self-help sound bites. They were presenting something far more radical, far more challenging, and something that today's interpretations often gloss over. They believed that virtue wasn't just important, it wasn't even the highest good. For the original Stoics, virtue was the only good. That's not a minor detail. It's a philosophical earthquake, and once you understand it, it changes everything. Why does this distinction matter so much? Because if you miss this central truth, you distort the entire philosophy. What was once a rigorous journey toward inner excellence and true eudaimonia, a genuinely flourishing life, gets watered down into just another tool for stress relief or productivity. The modern guru version of Stoicism often paints it as a way to win at life, to stay chill when things get chaotic, or to cultivate a cool, detached vibe. But that's a far cry from the original intent. Here's the truth. Ancient Stoicism was never about feeling comfortable or suppressing emotion. It was a revolutionary ethical framework that forced you to reevaluate everything you think matters in life. Ignore that radical core, the primacy of virtue, and Stoicism loses its depth, its edge, and its transformative power. It's like mistaking a lion for a house cat. They might look similar on the surface, but they're fundamentally different beasts. In this video, we're going to expose what I call the virtue lie. We'll unpack what the ancient Stoics actually meant when they said virtue is the sole good. We'll explore how that idea has been bent out of shape by modern interpretations. And we'll discover why returning to the original, more demanding Stoic vision reveals a philosophy far deeper and far more powerful than the version sold today. To grasp how radical ancient Stoicism really was, you have to understand what they meant by virtue. For Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, and later figures like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, virtue, or arete in Greek, wasn't some vague moral niceness. It was specific, it was structured, and it came down to four cardinal components: wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. These weren't just admirable traits. They were the essence of a well-lived, rational human life. Now here's the kicker. This part most modern interpretations water down. The Stoics didn't say virtue was the main good, or even the best good. They said it was the only good. Everything else, your health, wealth, reputation, even pleasure, pain, and death, fell into a separate category: indifferents, adiaphora. That doesn't mean those things had no value. The Stoics divided indifference into preferred, like health, and dispreferred, like illness. Sure, you could prefer to be healthy, but these things by themselves didn't make you morally better or worse. They didn't touch your true happiness, your eudaimonia. Let that sink in. Your career success, an indifferent. How attractive you are, an indifferent. What people think of you, definitely an indifferent. The only thing that truly mattered, the only thing that defined whether your life was flourishing, was the state of your character, your ability to act with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. It was revolutionary. Unlike Aristotle, who believed external goods were part of a good life, the Stoics claimed they weren't necessary at all. A slave could be just as virtuous, and therefore just as happy, as an emperor. Why? Because happiness, for the Stoics, depended entirely on your inner life, on your choices, your values, your reason. Epictetus put it simply: Some things are up to us, and some things are not. What's up to us? Our thoughts, our judgments, our actions. What's not up to us? Pretty much everything else. This idea, that virtue alone is good, was the key to inner freedom, to true resilience, to living well, regardless of what life throws at you. But today, that radical idea is getting lost. In the 21st century, Stoicism is trending. It's everywhere. Books, podcasts, quotes on Instagram. But the Stoicism being promoted is often Stoicism Lite, a version that's easier to swallow, easier to sell, and ultimately, less true. Instead of being the sole good, virtue becomes just one item on a list, something useful for getting other things, wealth, status, productivity, peace of mind. But that turns Stoicism into a means to an end. And when you do that, you hollow it out. You see this in how popular voices emphasize tools like negative visualization or preparing for adversity. These are powerful practices, but detached from their ethical foundation in virtue, they become techniques, not philosophy. It's like picking up a scalpel without understanding surgery. The ancient Stoics didn't pursue tranquility, ataraxia, or emotional calm for their own sake. They pursued them so that they could practice virtue more effectively. Virtue wasn't a tactic, it was the goal. So why does the modern version soften Stoicism? Because the real thing is hard. It's hard to accept that your job, your relationships, your social status, they don't define a good life. That your worth is entirely up to you. It's much easier to use Stoicism to cope with a bad job than to ask whether that job aligns with a life of virtue. Now let's talk about emotion, a topic where modern Stoicism often goes off the rails. There's this popular image of Stoics as emotionless, cold, benumbed. That's a distortion. Ancient Stoics didn't aim to eliminate emotion. They aimed to eliminate destructive, irrational passions. They made a critical distinction. Initial emotional reactions, what they called propatheiae, were natural and unavoidable. But the deeper passions, path, stemmed from faulty judgments about what matters. Think about it. If you believe money is a true good, losing money will wreck you emotionally. But if you believe virtue is the only good, you won't be crushed by loss, because your happiness was never built on that foundation. The Stoics aimed to transform our emotions by transforming our judgments, not suppress emotions, but correct the thinking that fuels them. They also believed in eupatheiae, positive emotions rooted in right judgments, joy in virtue, caution in vice, and a rational desire for others to grow in virtue. Without the centrality of virtue, modern Stoicism has no solid ground for understanding emotion. It becomes about coping instead of transforming. Now let's touch on reason, or logos, the very soul of Stoicism. To live according to nature, to the Stoics, meant to live according to reason. Reason is how we align our actions with virtue. It's how we refine our judgments. Modern takes often treat reason like a productivity hack or an emotional cheat code, but for the Stoics, reason wasn't a trick. It was a discipline, a commitment, and becoming truly rational, the Stoic sage, was a near mythical ideal. Most of us will never become sages, but we can all become prokoptantes, those making progress. Real Stoicism isn't about instant emotional control. It's about long-term ethical transformation. So why bother with this harder, more demanding version? Because it's the one that actually works. It gives you something stronger than just stress relief or better habits. It gives you a life that's unshakable, not because nothing goes wrong, but because you've built your foundation on what truly matters. It challenges you to stop chasing things outside your control and instead pour your energy into who you are becoming. Wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. This isn't a toolkit, it's a calling. And once you understand that virtue is the only good, you'll never look at Stoicism or your life the same way again. If this challenged your view of Stoicism, let's talk about it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you noticed this modern misinterpretation of virtue? And if this helped you see Stoicism more clearly, like the video and subscribe for more philosophy, deep dives, and critical thinking. And finally, if you're ready to go deeper and truly understand what Stoicism is really about, I highly recommend picking up the book linked in the description. It's a must-read for anyone who wants to move beyond the quotes and into the core of the philosophy, where the real transformation begins.